Hey everybody, welcome to this week's Roundup. I got a whole bunch to talk about this week and I didn't even get to finish all of it, so if I miss anything, just check in the next couple days in the website and I'll make sure to get to it next week. But let's jump in and see what we got. First up, Marcus just released a new firmware for the OSSC Pro that adds a few different things. It has some fixes to it and improves the downscaling. Definitely check out Marco's post if you want to see all of the additions and see if any of the fixes or updates applies to you, especially stuff like 1920 by 1440 input support, as well as 1536p output support for those tablet screens. However, the downscaling capabilities now allows 720p to drop to 480i or 240p in line multiplier modes, and 1080p could also decimate to 240p or 216 active lines to even keep it a 5x integer scale if you wanted to do that. And that comes at no additional lag. It's still the same, less than 3 milliseconds of latency. So this really is becoming the king of downscalers. But on top of that, there was a lot more stuff added to the scaler mode, including the ability to drop the latency from over 2 frames down to about 20 milliseconds. So if you wanted to do anything like TV or movies, you would just use that mode anyway. But if you wanted to use the more capable mode that has the bigger buffer in it, now it's only just over a frame of lag, which is absolutely awesome. So definitely check out Marco's post for all the details. The video Marco embedded was just a quick update to the main video, which of course is in here as well. But honestly, it really is looking like the OSSC Pro is now like the go-to gaming downscaler for people that really want to use that. The Tink 4K still has advantages for movie and TV, like its 24p support, but honestly, for the price, this thing is absolutely awesome. And if you put it into context, which is always important, the alternatives to this can be very expensive, especially for years. Friends of mine and I would hunt down Extron Super Emotions on eBay, which would cost more than the OSSC Pro and the VGA module for it. And this is obviously a much better solution overall than that. And if you don't believe me, check out Marco's detailed videos on this. So thanks to Marcus, thanks to Marco, and I'm excited. I'm going to try to get one of these things to do my own downscaling, testing with it. Not that I don't trust Marco, I love this stuff and I want to try myself too. Next, Wobbling Pixels just posted an update to the RetroTink 4K profile packs, as well as posted a detailed tutorial video to go along with it. And this breaks up the different profiles into categories so that when you're extracting it to your SD card, you could select whichever one applies to you. So there's both PAL and NTSC profiles, which of course you could put both if you use both, but if you don't, now you don't have to scroll through all those extra PAL profiles, which wouldn't apply to you. And also there's different choices for both 4K Pro and 4K CE owners. So that's great. That way you also just don't accidentally try to access something that yours can't do, or you don't miss a feature that yours can do, whatever. But to install these, all you have to do is pop your SD card into your PC, then search for Wobbling Pixels and delete whatever you find, and then just dump these new profile folders into the root directory and go from there. So if you had a NTSC only consoles and a Tink 4K Pro, you just grab that one folder, dump it in, and you're done. So this is awesome because while you absolutely don't need any custom profiles with the Tink 4K, it absolutely improves the performance. So if you're somebody that doesn't like messing with this stuff, you just don't want to be bothered, or you just want to start playing, literally just plug it in and turn it on and you're good to go. But extracting these free profile packs that somebody took a very long time to be tweaking and getting this stuff right really does add to the experience and get you a bunch of different options. The full list of changes for each console in the general are all here in the post. So if you want to check that out, definitely go right through and see. And of course, check out the video from Wobbling Pixels to get all the details on what this is. Next up, the developer Rami has just released the Saturn Ring Library, or SRL, which aims to make development of homebrew games on the Sega Saturn even easier than before. According to the developer, SRL, the Saturn Ring Library, is a wrapper for the Sega graphics library written in C++23, giving the developer easy-to-use tools to develop games. It gives you the power to use a modern toolchain supporting many standard library features and an integrated Saturn math library. So basically, this is something that if you're looking to get into Saturn development, or if you've already done it, this tool should make your life a lot easier, which is always really appreciated because the Saturn homebrew scene is already pretty thriving. So having just more tools to make that easier is always appreciated. And I'm interested to see what comes out of this. If you want, check out Dan's post with all of the info and links and stuff like that, as well as a list of exactly what it could do and what other features it's including right now, and other things that you might want to look out for. So yeah, this is awesome. Hopefully this just results in a bunch more cool Saturn games for us. I just reviewed a 7-port USB 3.2 hub. I'll do the long review in a second, but stick with me for like 20 seconds. Basically, it's a hub that I have been using for a while now that has 4 USB 3.0 ports and 3 USB 3.2 ports, 2 of which are USB-C, 1 of which is USB-A, and it runs at full speed with no issues that I've personally found. You just got to make sure that if you don't use the cable that it comes with to connect to your PC, that you test whatever cable that you use just to make sure that it's fully compatible and you're getting the full speed. So if that's all you care about or you don't care anymore, please check the timestamps and skip to the next section. I'm going to run through and do like a mini review here and just kind of walk you through what I found. So first and foremost, why is there a USB hub review on RetroRGB? Well, like last time, it's been near impossible to find reliable hubs and reliable USB equipment over 3.0 that worked the way I wanted to and works consistently every time. So once I found this, I got lucky. It was actually just the first one I bought, but I said, all right, I got to do another review because a lot of people thanked me for doing the last one, and I want to make this easier for everybody. Also, I tested with an NVMe drive, and I did all the tests with multiple cables plugged directly into the PC, then through the hub. And what I found was basically it's identical in speed. The NVMe drive I have is actually the fastest USB rated speed, and which is higher than this one. It's the 2x2 Gen 2 or something. We'll get to the stupid naming in a minute. But so what I'm doing by running Crystal Disk Mark on this is maxing out the bus, not the drive, which allows me to do things like, say, it ran basically at exactly the same speed through the hub. And while every time you run one of these tests, you're going to get slightly different results anyway, they're all within just a few megabytes of each other. So it's basically the exact same. The only thing I did run into a weird issue was with the cables. So definitely if you're doing high-speed transfers all the time, especially if it's a scenario like me where I have that NVMe drive with a USB cable going into this, I would run Crystal Disk Mark just to double check that the cables you're using are compatible on the input and output side of things. If you're just using a flash drive that obviously has the port built in, you probably wouldn't have to worry about it at all. I tested 3 flash drives and all were fine, which was the opposite of my last USB hub testing experience. Like a couple of hubs, at least 2 or 3, failed all of those tests no matter what. So that's good to know. The other couple of tests that I ran was I had my keyboard and mouse always plugged in through this hub, and I was using the keyboard and wiggling the mouse as I ran these tests. That didn't make any difference whatsoever. I was also testing by transferring a small group of files on USB 3 while also doing the USB 3.2 transfer. That didn't really affect it. I also lag tested a controller with and without the hub with the speed test running, and that didn't seem to affect the lag test at all, which I still wouldn't be transferring huge files while gaming, in a latency important environment. But it's just nice to know that while I, as a paranoid nerd, would always want to plug my controller directly into my PC, if I had to plug it into this, you're not going to get latency unless there's some freak scenario. I also tested out the power supply, and the PSU itself looked like it had the correct ratings on it. It says it's a 3 amp power supply, and I was able to do my usual power the tank, power a mister through it. You got to be reasonable though. You don't want to underpower your devices. I would not buy this hub thinking you're going to power all of your USB stuff from it. You definitely want to just mark off that 3 amp max and don't try to push over that for any of your connected devices. But overall, I mean, it gave me enough power to do everything I needed it to do. So that's totally fine. The power buttons are capacitive touch buttons that affect each individual port. You tap to turn it on, you hold to turn it off, and there's a blue light that illuminates when it's on. I usually hate capacitive touch buttons. Really, the only time I thought it was the perfect match was the Virtual Boy ROM cart that I reviewed a couple years ago. But it's fine for this one, and the fact that you have to hold your finger on the button means you can't accidentally turn one off. But while I normally don't like bright LEDs, it's actually very helpful to know which ports are powered on. Whereas on the other hub that I reviewed, which I still love, I never really knew when it was on because the buttons were mechanical push button, but you couldn't really tell when they were up or down. So having the lights actually makes this fine, and I don't mind that I have to go and fumble around for the capacitive touch button, although I would have rather had the mechanical button on it. So the only other thing that I want to go through, and once again, skip to the next section if you don't care, I contacted Ken from What's Ken Making to take a look at what this thing does, just to make sure I'm not missing anything, to verify a couple of the things that I was doing. And what we found was actually pretty interesting. So first, 2 chips are what drives this hub. The first chip is a VLI chip that runs at the USB 3.2 speeds. And for anybody with a keen eye, I photoshopped this chip on it just because the one picture here was blurry in that one spot. Everything else was crystal clear. So I took a second picture. And so, yeah, I'm not trying to hide anything here. But so this 4-port hub, that's how you get the 3 USB 2 ports on it. And then it has another hub on there that has all of the USB 3 inputs, and that runs into the main hub's 4th input. So that makes total sense. That's how all of this works. But what kind of broke my brain is the naming of this. Now, it doesn't affect performance at all, but just to give you an idea, that first chip, the VLI chip, is a USB 3.1 Gen 2 hub. So technically it's USB 3.1, but it runs at the 10 gigabit per second USB 3.2 rated speeds. Also, the Realtek chip is a USB 3.2 Gen 1x1 hub, which is the exact same speed as USB 3.0. Who came up with these names? Like, what is the reason for this unbelievable stupidity? How could you have a USB 3.2 Gen 1.1 hub that runs at its correct rated speed, which is the same speed as USB 3.0? Why didn't we just do 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, etc.? I don't know. That was just mind-blowing and made my brain hurt thinking about all those terrible naming conventions. But definitely a shout out to Ken. Ken spent 3 hours with me going through this and making sure that we tested everything that we could and really just nerding out, which is a testament to how much of a nerd both of us are, because this is fun for us to go through. But so thank you very, very much to Ken for doing this. I had a blast going through and checking it out and just kind of seeing how this thing worked and verifying all this stuff, and also just making sure that this wasn't some cheap piece of garbage I was recommending, that the tests that I did actually did hold up, as well as the specs of the chips do hold up and run at the 10 gig rated speed for those 3 ports that are available. So yeah, if you're looking for a USB 3.2 quote hub, a 10 gigabit per second USB hub that you could rely on the speeds, that you want a mix of USB-C and USB-A, then this one's kind of a no-brainer at the $30. Also, I used the USB cable that it came with. I just kind of have it sitting on my desk for the input side of things, because it has a really cool A to C adapter on it. So it could be either a USB-C or a USB-C to A cable. And that tested at full speed on the input or output side. So overall, highly, highly recommend it. Thanks very much to Ken for helping me out with this one. And seriously, what the heck were they thinking with these USB naming conventions? Next up, Sega Sonic Fan has just released an updated version of his replacement lens covers for the Nintendo Virtual Boy. The price is $24 plus shipping, and they're available now. There's 2 videos. There's the original video, and then there's just the updated video of this one for anybody that wants to see how they're installed. But you would just do it the same way you would the original. You unbolt the Virtual Boy, you slide the old lens covers out, and you slide these in. And this is one of those things where if you have a Virtual Boy with scratched lenses, it's kind of a no-brainer. You just got to pick this one up. The price is fair, and everything, should line up just perfectly going into it. It is a 3D printed shell that the lenses go into, I believe, but the fit looked perfect in the video. So this is just one of those things that if you got a Virtual Boy and your lenses are perfect, you don't need it. But if they're not perfect, or if you want to carry your Virtual Boy around, like I did at least one event with them. I think there were 2 different ones I did over the years. I probably would have preferred to have these in, because what if I'm on my way to or at the event and the thing falls over and it scratches the lens? So I would probably want to have these in there and keep my original ones preserved, but that's totally up to you. Links to absolutely everything, as well as Sega Sonic Fans' other Virtual Boy accessories are here, and some of those include things like the virtual ribbon and a couple of other stuff. So basically, if you're a Virtual Boy fan, click on the link, see if there's anything there that you want. There's now a new homebrew racing game for the Sega Saturn called Micro Motor Mayhem that the developer Jay Beretta is describing as a bit like Micro Machines and a bit like Mario Kart. You go around these sets of miniaturized areas, so like a tabletop or a pool table and stuff like that, and you drive your miniature car around it, and it looks really cool. It does resemble like the top-down racing style games of that, of like Micro Machines and ones like it, and it just looks like a fun game. It's still in progress, so there's still some bugs with it and some things to look out for. The list of bugs are right here in Dan's post if you're interested in any of that stuff. But honestly, this just looks awesome. And if you have the ability to play Saturn Homebrew, this seems like something you should definitely check out. Obviously, if you like racing games. If you don't, fine. But Dan's post has a ton of different screenshots and a whole bunch of information. So even if you don't have the ability to play Saturn Homebrew, maybe just check out the post, show some love to a dev who put out another awesome game, and check out the video on it that kind of shows it in action. But this is a lot of fun, and it seems like something Saturn fans would want to check out. Next up, Darksoft has just released an updated version of his CPS-1 multi-kit that goes back to using an official Q Sound chip in place of an FPGA. So some background on this. Darksoft released the CPS-1 multi a while back that also included the Q Sound chip to allow you to play games that required it, essentially making it a CPS 1.5 as well. And when those chips were no longer able to be found, Darksoft used an FPGA with Hotego's code on it in order to create the Q Sound chip, which worked fine and there were no problems with it, except people definitely said that they wanted as much original hardware as possible, because if you're an arcade enthusiast who wants to buy something like this, you just want to use all original hardware. So Darksoft was able to determine a Lucent chip back when AT&T became Lucent that was used for Q Sound in the CPS-2 and figure out how to get it working. So it's the story directly from Darksoft is that the problem with the DSP that was used was that it had a Capcom silkscreen on it, and there was thought to be a specific Lucent chip. However, that could not be programmed. It was only available as OTP or mask ROM. So Darksoft had to find a way to have it run code from an external memory chip in order for it to work, which is why if you're watching on video, you see that the Lucent chip here is actually in an adapter board that allows that to happen. So using this chip essentially makes it officially original chips for Q Sound. So that means if you buy one of these, you could play the whole library of CPS 1 and 2 games, and it really is just original hardware. Now, a couple of different stores have this in, and I believe you can just purchase this upgrade board, or would be able to if you already had one of the versions with an FPGA on it. But I do want to always just put things into perspective. If you say, I just want to play some, original CPS 1 and 2 games, just go emulate it somewhere for free, and you'll be able to at least get a sense of them. And also, if you're looking to do something like, well, I want a really accurate emulation of it, you could use Raspberry Pis or, of course, the Mister in order to do that and have a really great experience at a very good price, all things considered. But if you're the type of person who says, no, I want original hardware, it's important to me, even if it's identical, I want to use original hardware, but I don't want to constantly be swapping between my very, very expensive game boards, or maybe I have most of the collection, but not all of them. Spending the money on something like this kit would actually save you money and make sense. But if you're just like, I want to play some CPS-1 games on my arcade machine, obviously this is a ton of money and it's probably not for you. But I do really think that there are a lot of people in the arcade world that this is the perfect fit. And now that the Q Sound chip is going back to using an official original solution, it makes even more sense for original hardware enthusiasts. So If you are one of those people, awesome. You already know how much this is going to cost anyway. And if not, click on the links and everything. But when you see the cost of these, just know that this isn't for everybody. This is for a specific group of people. And for those people, it's a fair price that could potentially save them money with a really cool solution. So awesome that Darksoft was able to make this happen. And links in the full story are in the description. Kaitor Industries just released a SCART brace for the Gscart switches. These are braces that help hold the SCART connector in place so they don't back itself out and you don't randomly lose signal or not have your console work and think there might be another problem. You could use these to snap them in place and hold them so that they won't back out. There are 2 versions available, one for just the standard Gscart and another that for people who have added the Laser Bear bumper case as well. So just pick whichever one you want. And they're sold in 5 packs or 10 packs ranging from 14 to 25. So that's a pretty big help. 10 pack, obviously, because there's 2 outputs on the Gscart as well. So you could hold all of them in place. And Kaitor is both selling them on the site in both black and white. You could choose whichever one you want, or you could download the file and print it yourself, which is awesome. So thanks to Kyle for just releasing that file to people as well. That's a very cool thing to do. The only thing to note is if your SCART cables are oddly sized, this isn't going to fit. I've used a bunch of the Kaitor SCART braces and I've tested them and stuff like that. And for the standard sellers of cables that you've bought the past couple of years, they should work totally fine. But if you have older cables or ones with weird heads, they're just not going to fit and there's nothing you could do about it. But most people should have SCART cables that fit. So if you want to see it in action, check out the post that I embedded right in here. But it's as easy as it seems. You just plug your SCART cable in, snap the brace around it, and you don't have to worry about it popping out. So thanks to Kyle for doing it. Next up, developer IQ132 has just ported 2 more games from the Neo Geo MVS over to the Neo Geo CD. The games are Neo Bomberman and Captain Tomaday, and both perform really well and are exactly what you would expect. You get to play the MVS version of the game, but on the much cheaper Neo Geo CD, and you could do this by either burning CDRs, or if you use something like the Neo SD loader, that would work as well. They mostly just work exactly as expected, and the loading times are very respectable, all things considered. So if you want to check this stuff out, please check out Ray's post. There's videos embedded for both of these games, and of course there's also a link to IQ132's Patreon page if you're a huge fan of this stuff and want more games to be ported over or more work to be done. So this is awesome. I always like to see this, and I'm sure everybody who has a Neo Geo CD, but not any of other Neo Geo hardware, who wants to experience these games on original hardware, now here you go. Here's an easy way to do it. So thanks very much to the developer for doing it, and check out Ray's post for details and links to everything. After posting the LG C4 OLED review, a couple of people were asking about boost mode. And for whatever reason, I was having issues with it when I was doing this review. And I finally went back, thanks to suggestions from some commenters, and figured out what it was doing and how it works. And when you enable boost mode, it's actually putting the TV into a native 60 hertz mode. And that way you lose a lot of the 120 hertz processing and obviously the ability to add BFI and stuff, but it drops the latency a lot. And there are specific scenarios in which it will or won't work though. The one cool thing, I did a YouTube short social media post about this, and I show with the 960 frame per second camera how in 60 hertz mode, you could kind of see the black bar going down the screen slowly, and it draws each frame once, confirming that it's running in a 60 hertz mode. You could tell just by looking at the black bar and the number in the upper right changing, whereas with it off, it has to draw each frame twice, because that's how you put a 60 hertz image on a 120 hertz TV. Now, when you use it with a 720p 60, 1080p 60, and 1440p 60 source, it will drop the latency to 1.7 milliseconds. So that means if you're using a Mister or an OSSC, this is definitely the mode to use. And I feel bad I didn't put that part in the main video, but there are some things about it that don't make it perfect. First, if you turn on HDR, it adds a frame of latency to the already existing boost mode. And if you add VRR along with it, you end up going back to the same ish, within a millisecond or two latency that you would have without boost mode on at all. So it's really only for people who are going to be using 1080p 60, or I guess 50. I don't have any PAL equipment. It might be the same in 50, but it definitely 60 hertz sources at those three resolutions without HDR or VRR. So if you're using an OSSC or a Mister connected directly to it, definitely try this and just don't put on HDR and you should be totally fine. It doesn't really work well if you are somebody that does CRT mask emulation, because then you would need the extra boost of HDR in most scenarios. But if you just want to play your games on it, that's really awesome. That's saving you, a couple extra milliseconds off the top right there. Also, just a note, in the social media post, YouTube short, I used the Mister because in interest of time, I just didn't want to have to go over, I was already pretty long for a short, and I didn't want to have to show more things. So the Mr. Laggy that I used, I did that both to demo how that works and also show that the Mister is compatible in its lowest latency mode. So that's the VSync adjust equals 2. So it didn't have any dropouts with the Super Nintendo core or with any of the lag tests that I did. So I figured I just showed that in the video and just made the note that the Mr. Laggy is 1 millisecond higher than using a time sleuth, which is totally fine for these measurements. The only other thing that stood out that was super weird was 480p 60 actually had more lag with boost mode on, regardless if it was in 16:9 or 4:3 mode. So just don't even bother using it for 480p sources at all. And honestly, my opinion doesn't change about 480p at all with this. If you have 480p sources and you don't have a scaler, you just have something like a component HDMI converter for original Xbox, Wii, whatever, it's fine to plug it right in, but eventually plan on getting a scaler, a GBS control, whatever. Just some scaler in the long run will probably be a good idea to match with it, because it just doesn't seem like it was built for 480p game sources. It does a decent enough job with TV and movies. So I just wanted to go through and kind of show you what boost mode is, because I thought it was interesting that it actually switched the panel into that mode. So it's pretty neat. But other than that, the review stands up. I wish I didn't have time to include this, but I updated the post with all of this info. So that's just more good news for Mister and OSSC users. But if you're using the Tink with HDR and a bunch of filters, everything stays the same. And to be honest, the latency is not noticeable. So dropping it down is great for hardcore gamers in really high latency sensitive scenarios. But for your average person, having the ability to do all of that other awesome stuff with the filters is probably a better idea. But at least now we have that confirmed. Another quick follow-up that didn't make it into its own post yet that I just wanted to mention to everybody. I lag tested the Octopus fight stick that I've been talking about, and its USB latency averaged less than 3 milliseconds over many thousand tests. So that is great. That's a very good number. That's not noticeable in almost any scenario. And I tried to test the Dreamcast adapter, but ran into some issues, and I think I'm going to have to swing back when I get the other cables for it. So I'll do a follow-up stream, and I'll have a post then that goes through and says what the full latency is in the different console modes like Dreamcast or SNES, NES, etc. And how does the Neo Geo mode work? Is that a pass-through at 0 latency? Does it get buffered through with 3 milliseconds, which even if it did, no big deal. But these are good numbers to have and good things to show people. So I just wanted to update you all on that. And also, I think the RAFnet adapter has 6 milliseconds of latency for the Dreamcast to USB adapter. But I want to double and triple check that, and that's kind of where one of the bottlenecks were. So I'll follow up on all that. I think all I just wanted to do is take a quick minute to say, if you were going to buy the Octopus fight stick and you were worried about latency over the USB port, don't. It's only 3 milliseconds. But I really want to go back and test the consoles, because that's the big selling point of why you would want to buy this over any of the other much cheaper type of fight sticks like this, is its ability to connect to all of those different consoles, including the Dreamcast with a VMU. So I'll swing back to that as soon as I can, as soon as the other cables come in. It's going to be weeks at the earliest, but I hope not too far away, because I'm just really curious how this thing performs. And if it is that speed for all of those consoles, then it really is worth every penny if you need all the features. Once again, if you just need a USB controller, you could definitely get one cheaper that's, as well built, but the price for this, you're really getting a lot of extra features. So I'll follow up soon. One very quick question for any cassette nerds out there that I was just hoping to get more clarification on. I stumbled across a brand new cassette deck from the brand Pile that was less than $200 and new on Amazon, and it was fine. It wasn't anything, it wasn't like a Nakamichi Dragon or anything, but I threw some tapes in. It sounded fine, and I thought it was a pretty cool alternative for people that just wanted something new, because buying used equipment, you never know. Are the capacitors dying? Are the tape heads breaking? And when I put that post out, just telling the truth, saying, hey, here's an affiliate link if anybody wants it, but this thing, seems fine, but I don't really know. A couple of people came back and said that the tape mechanism in this is known to eat tapes, and it's the same one that's in a bunch of different alternatives that are like $500. So I was hoping anybody who's really into these decks would be able to have some clarification, because does that mean, if that's true, I could buy the $500 TIAC version of this and still have to worry about my tapes getting eaten when I use them? The reviews for this one mentioned things that weren't all great, but context has to be put into place here. Like one of the reviews wasn't that good because it didn't have a built-in amp. That one made me laugh a lot. But another review said that a brand new sealed tape didn't play right and it seemed to get messed up. But a brand new sealed tape, if the first deck that you're putting it in is this, how do you know that the tape is good? I've absolutely bought, new sealed tapes that were sitting in a hot warehouse for years, decades actually, that probably melted or got warped or something and didn't play right. So I would love the clarification. Is this a safe deck to use? Are the worst things that are going to happen? Sometimes your tapes play a little too fast or a little too slow. And if that's the case, fine. For the money, if you just need something brand new or if you stumble across one used, cool. And if not, if this thing is a danger, if this really is the same tape mechanism used in the two other very expensive ones that are currently on the market, why are those allowed to be sold? Is there a difference? I just want to make sure I got my information correct on this, because, my suggestion was basically buy it from Amazon if you want something new, try it out. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, just return it right away. But I don't want people buying this thing, having it work, and then a week or two from now putting a tape in and having the tape destroyed. I take responsibility when stuff like that happens. I feel like I messed up. So anybody who knows about this stuff, please chime in. But I feel like if it is the same mechanism and it is eating tapes, TIAC wouldn't be using it in theirs. But I'm not an expert at that stuff. So let me know what you think. If you have knowledge on this, and any links that you have, just once again, YouTube just deletes links. So you'd have to, describe it out. Go to, the name of website and search for or something else. And I'm sorry about that. There's nothing I could do. They don't even show up in my held for review bin. So please let me know if you got any info. And if you're interested in it, check it out. Well, that's it for this week. There was a bunch of stuff to talk about, so I tried to move a little quicker for the stuff that didn't require a lot of descriptions. And like I said at the beginning, I actually have a bunch of posts I'm working on now that I just didn't have time to finish. And maybe there's the SNES 2-chip board coming out this week. I've heard that before, but we'll see. But so yeah, just check out RetroRGB.com if you want all the up-to-date stuff. And of course, I'll get to all of that next week on next week's podcast. But as always, thanks to everybody who watches, listens, plays nicely in the comments, and especially thank you to anybody who supports in absolutely any way, because it really is you who's keeping all this stuff going. So thank you very much, and I'll see you next week. This week's Roundup is brought to you by Neo Paradigm Entertainment, connecting Southeast Asian influencers with opportunities in the West.